So our next session is just telling your why narrative, and it's with Dr. Melissa Mason, who's a program analyst with DHCD, and Jessica Gaines, who's a program administrator. And we are going to take questions in the chat, of course, and you can use the raise button if you'd like to raise your hand to speak. And I'll let Jessica and Melissa take it away.
Sorry, I was working on getting my mic to come off. So as Jenna explained, Dr. Mason and I are going to be discussing how to tell your story effectively. And in this presentation, I am going to be focusing on the oral narrative because some things just need to be verbalized, such as like empathy, what your expectations are, what tasks and roles need to be performed. So why is it important to tell that story and using your voice in order to get that across effectively? And as you can see, there's like a quote there that you're already doing a lot of things. You have a lot of deadlines to meet and to complete, and you have to motivate, inspire people to be active and not shirk away from like the work that needs to be done, to pull their weight and deal with uncommunicative people who aren't answering your calls, aren't answering your emails. And on top of that, you're expected to be like a mind reader and know what everyone's needs are going to be. So as I mentioned before, some things just need to be verbalized, and being able to communicate your why through stories can have an impact on completing your projects on time, within budget, and meeting full benefits. As you can see, like there's a poll from the Institute of Project Management where 50% of project managers say that stakeholders make or break a project success. And if I'm talking too fast or there are comments or breaks, please just, find a way to let me know. Jenna, like wave flags, smoke signals or anything and get my attention. So stakeholders make and break the success of a project. So it becomes critical to make a connection with the people who are involved in your project. And I know this can be like annoying, having to tell a story to people, connecting with others. It's just one more thing that you have to worry about on top of the millions of other things that you have competing for your time, not only during your 9-to-5 business working hours, but you also have a personal life as well. And I understand that as grantees and project managers, you have a million things competing with your time, like I said before, more than one project to deal with, calls to make, people to meet, deadlines that come a lot faster than you expect them to do. There's not enough time in the day, and this work can, and trying to meet everyone's expectations and needs can be a recipe for burnout. So we're going to try to get across with this workshop in this presentation specifically how knowing your why and being able to tell your story can get you back in alignment with what your mission is. So we're going to have a little bit of a story time. Kathy, this is your time to queue up. Kathy Beek has graciously agreed to tell one of her stories. Kathy is a program administrator working out of the Richmond office, the Richmond office, but before coming to DHCD, well, Kathy used to do a lot of things, but in one of those lives, Kathy used to be a teacher. And then I'll stop sharing, Kathy, and then you can be seen.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, one of the stories that I'd like to tell, sorry, my dog is also chiming in, apologize, is a time when I was a teacher many, many years ago. I was a young teacher and just getting into it, and I was in a small rural community and I was part of the health and physical education department. And one of my colleagues was telling me we had I was in a middle school, and he was a 7th grader football player, and they were taking him home each night after practice. They had an activity bus that would take the kids from the school to their homes. Well, he noticed that this one young man, when he got off the bus, he would tell the bus driver, stop here. And my colleague was like, well, there's no street, there's no house. And he said, no, that's okay, I'll just walk the rest of the way. And it was, I think, my colleague said he had to walk like another half a mile or so. And this is at night, football season, it's dark. And he was adamant, no, I don't want you driving by my home, you drop me off here and I'll walk. And as it turned out, we found out that the young man, it still gets to me, lived in a home at the time with, it was, I guess, no indoor plumbing, and there was a visible outhouse out to the side and back of his home that he knew that if his friends from school were to come by, they would, most likely make fun, and they would see it. They would see the type of home, and he was really embarrassed. And it always struck me, and maybe that's part of my internal why is to doing the work that I do and have done for many years, is to help people improve their quality of their life. And just knowing that this young man had no indoor plumbing in his home, and yet he came to school. He's a really nice young man, just really, cool kid, a good kid. And to see how he was living and how embarrassed he was. And so that's really what drives me in doing the work that I do, is to, make sure that what I do helps improve folks like him, improve their quality of life. So thank you.
And I
Back to
see
you,
Brian
Jessica.
Goldman in the chat, and you had the same experience. Would you feel comfortable sharing that with the rest of the group? Oh, no.
Jessica, I think you're muted. And as you were saying, Brian Goldman is not mic'd.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yep.
Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to Kathy. As you kind of heard, this work is really dependent on people. But some other kind of facts about projects that the Project Management Institute's Trends and Statistics found out for 2023, reporting out on 2023 projects in 2024, is that most projects fail, 55% of them, due to like budget overruns. This is something that we're probably all extremely familiar about, especially coming out of the pandemic, where we saw those huge rise in costs and prices. But as we kind of like seen, like a lot of those projects still kept going on. You still fought for your communities, and a lot of those projects ended up finishing, even though they had a lot of roadblocks. 41% of projects fail because of the lack of support, because the people who were originally committed to the project or wanted to participate to the project decided that they no longer wanted to. 40%, a lack of alignment. You just don't agree on the same things. You're not in this for the same person. You're not on the same bus going in the same direction. And being able to effectively communicate your why specifically through stories helps people get back into alignment, helps people kind of overcome their apathy or frustration with the work. And it helps you remember what's on the other side of this sacrifice. So managing those stakeholder expectations is incredibly important to making sure that your project finishes on time, within budget, and able to meet those full expectations. And we all have competing needs and objectives or things that we need to have done. On the DHCD program administrator side, I'm in charge of making sure that we're on deadline. We're meeting all the requirements for HUD. And if a grantee came to me with a story that Kathy just told about one of the homeowners in one of their projects, I would do an Olympic level performance in advocating for them. If you needed another project extension, like say you're on your 15th one, although that probably would never ever happen. I would do everything I could to advocate to making sure that you had the time available to help those who are in need with the project. And I'm sure, as Amanda and Joanne and Kathy Boatwright can all attest to, management really, really, really isn't thrilled with extending projects. But when we know, like, what is your why, how committed you are to each of these projects, what the impact is going to be in the community and for the individuals, your program managers can be pretty convincing. Um, Dr. Mason is going to be going over the requirements for HUD, so I'm going to skip over that. But knowing your homeowner's level of engagement in the project is really important to being able to complete it. So being able to know, like, what is their motivation? What is their why for being here in the project? And being able to tap into that and communicate with them. Like, they just need to hang in there. They need to look at the end result to be able to visualize what's on the other side of that sacrifice, so that they can move from a low level of involvement to a higher level of involvement. I'm going to go to the next slide. And being able to connect with people the shortest distance, as the great everlasting eternal sage Anonymous has said on the previous slide, that the shortest way between two people is a story. So being able to tell a story can help build a connection and bridge the gap in understanding. I know that on the ground level in the community, as a homeowner, you may not understand, like, why is it taking so long for you to be able to like get started, to be able to see the results of what you were promised when you got connected with the project. And being able to say, like, oh, we have these time constraints and all of these other things in an engaging way, it will help them kind of align themselves with what the project's goals are. It can help you overcome risks, setbacks, challenges within your project, because it realigns you to be able to be engaged. It kind of like stokes the fire. And being able to customize your story based on the different needs of what your stakeholders have, is also very important. So at the end of Dr. Mason's presentation, we would like you to maybe tell us some of your stories, how you overcame challenges in your projects. How were you able to managing competing interests? And just be thinking about that. But at the moment, we're going to hear from Dr. Melissa Mason, and she's going to go over telling your story through reports.
Thank you, Jessica. And just for a moment as I prepare to switch us over. Are you able to see my presentation? Okay,
Yes.
great, great,
Yes.
okay. So greetings, everyone. I hope that everyone has enjoyed the day yesterday and our morning so far. And I know some of you are on camera, and if you have to take a sip of your fuel, of that cup of coffee, feel free to do so. Whatever get you jump started, please feel free to do so. So again, my name is Melissa Mason, and I serve as your person of all things data. I assist you with telling you your why through reporting of your narratives and your beneficiary data. First of all, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. Thank you for your commitment of service to your communities via your projects. You are making life changes and you are helping people live their sustainable and effective lives. And so again, Kathy, thank you for that story that you shared. I know that many of us can
You're
relate
welcome.
or have heard the same story. And because of the great job that you all do, I am committed to assisting you with telling your story so that our funders can see and know the great work that is being done across the state of Virginia. I want to share with you briefly that in a training that I was in, we had the facilitator of the training, a gentleman, tell us that the same thing I'm saying to you. The data and the narratives tell them your story. And it is the only thing that they see, that they look at to know, to even get a picture, to get a visual picture of the work that's being done. And so they're not coming to see the great work so that they can get a feel for. The only thing that they have is the reports that you do. So that should help some of you change your mindset when doing these reports. You see an email from Melissa Mason that says it's that time of the year again. And so as you roll your eyes up in the top of your head and say, oh no, not again, think of it as a different way. This is our moment. This is the opportunity to tell the story and to show the great work that's being done and the effective changes that's being made. All right. And so also I want to share with you as a reminder that throughout the presentation, if you have a question, please feel free to raise your hand. Thank you, Jenna, for being an excellent speaker buddy. She will guide us through that, but we also ask that you put your questions in the chat. So you tell your why as a fulfillment to DHCD, and so that we could share information across the state of Virginia, especially to our legislators, to our various funders such as ARC, Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, Virginia Housing, and to the one that you hear about all the time, to the biggest funder, Department of Housing and Urban Development, called HUD. And most importantly, we are making an impact on the families in our communities. As part of the requirement of receiving community development block grant funds that we call CDBG, and I want to put a pin here for just one moment. We have the language of acronyms in our agency. And so I'm going to try to be intentional as possible to explain what these acronyms are that we get accustomed to using. I don't want to assume that there are people who are old hats in this, in our workshop today. Maybe some of you is your first time. So I want to be respectful of that as well. So going back, as part of the requirement of receiving CDBG or Community Development Block Grant funds, agencies are required to complete what we call an action plan and the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. A lot of words, and that's why we like to use the acronyms. And the acronym for the Consolidated Annual Performance Plan Report is called the CAPER. The annual action outlines local affordable housing and community development needs and identifies strategies for addressing them. It provides a concise summary of the actions, activities, and the specific federal and non-federal resources that will be used each year to address the priority needs and specific goals identified by the consolidated plan, or as we refer to, the CAPER. So where is the why told? Your why is told in two places specifically. The first one that I'm quite certain that most of you are familiar with is the Centralized Application Management System that we refer to as CAMS. It is DHCD's internal system for handling applications, remittances, data, and reporting. Now, the one that HUD is so very much important, so very much in tune to, it is theirs, is what they use. It is called the Integrated Disbursement and Information System. You will hear many refer to as IDIS or IDIS. It provides HUD with current information regarding the program activities underway across the nation, including funding data. HUD uses the data grantees provide in IDIS to report on the performance of the programs to Congress and other program stakeholders. Let me repeat that because this is so very important. HUD, the big funder, uses the data that grantees provide in IDIS to report on the performance of the programs to Congress and other program stakeholders. This is so very key. It goes back to the reason why it's so important that the narratives and the data is used, because you're telling your story. So why? Why is it so important? Why are we providing this data? Why are we telling these narratives? First of all, you're showing you're providing housing stability to the disadvantaged. As shared in the story that Kathy shared, you're improving people's lives. It's allowing you to make informed decisions, effective quality monitoring. It get the results that we want. When we're providing the information, you're able to look back at the data and see the results that you are getting. In addition, it helps to find solutions to those problems. When you are advocating for your project, the numbers help to back up the arguments. And it also helps to demystify your project. It increases efficiency, illustrates the strengths and weaknesses, establishes baselines and benchmarks, and it makes the most of the funding. But the biggest thing, it tells the story and it builds the narrative. And so for those of you that are very familiar and for those that it's the first time, here's some key words that you're going to hear throughout the duration of your contract: the planning grant, administration, sidewalk improvement, owner occupied, neighborhood cleanup, facades, sewer improvement, just to name a few. These are the centralized projects and terminologies for the projects that you'll be dealing with. So let's talk about the data. Let's talk about data collection. So you've heard me say this a lot throughout the presentation thus far. Narrative. Narrative writing tells a story. Your story, I cannot emphasize this enough to you, that the narrative writing tells your story. It's not anybody else's story, it's your story. And it's the story of the people lives that you are impacted, and their story deserves to be told. So the narrative describes the progress towards achieving accomplishments in the program year specified in the previous field. You may want to cite the percentage of the activity that has been completed. You may want to explain an undue delay, provide a time frame for completing the activity and meeting the national objective, and or explain why accomplishments have not yet been reported. So I wanted to share this illustration here of an accomplishment narrative. This was taken back from the annual report. I stated that the annual report is done each year. It is a mid-time reporting of what's going on with your project. It covers July 1 of a specified year to June 30th. And here we have a narrative that's shared, and it may be a little blurred, but I'll read it. From July 1, 22 to June 30th of 23. This locality did a great job of explaining what was going on. They told how many was completed, and then they shared that that there was a delay due to COVID. They showed that there was material delays, that there was increased cost. They shared about that there was a lack of contractors. Now, if we remember, this was a pivotal time, not just during COVID, but afterwards, because afterwards there still was impact of what took place during COVID. It was essential that this locality indicate what was going on because it had an impact to the data that would be following. All of you, I cannot express enough the great work that you all do. But I do want to share that there are some things that I have seen. I think that it's important that you are made aware of that. There have been times when the narrative was left blank and it has jumped to the data. The data and the narrative goes hand in hand. You can't just give the data and tell no story to it, because the data may not be as impressive as you think that it is. It may be to your situation at the time, but think about that if this locality had not put the narrative and had just put the data would have told a total different story, but by the locality adding the narrative, it gave a better story. Your story can be good, but it can always be better, and it can always be at its best. There have been times that I've seen the exact same verbiage from a previous year. Your narrative cannot be the same thing exactly from a previous year. And I get it. I understand that these reports roll up quickly. Taxes were due. It seemed like it was just due the previous year. That time rolls around quickly. But there is a lot has taken place from one year to another year. And so again, it's a disservice to copy and paste from a previous year. So I want to bring that out and to encourage you to tell your story. Explain the why in the narrative. So let's go in to talk about beneficiary information. So most of you may have seen this um, from the annual report, and then there is the closeout report. So there you have opportunities twice to tell your story. You have the annual report, which gives you a mid-year story, and then the closeout report that gives the ending story of what you were able to accomplish. For those of you that are new, let me add here, you are not going to be left out swinging alone when it comes to these reports. So please do not fear. You will have my contact information. Your program administrator is there to assist you. And we work together not only as a team at DHCD, but we are a team with you as well. And so you're not going to be flathering around by yourself. You will have assistance when it comes to completing these reports. And so the beneficiary information here provides your demographic information. Is important that HUD knows who are they reaching. And so you have here information regarding the racial and the ethnicity of the households, female-headed households. And in addition, you have the income levels broken down from extremely low to non-low moderate. And we know that our projects are are striving at reaching low to moderate households. Another portion of the beneficiary information that's shown here is regarding lead paint. Those that you see here, that one that is filled out, housing constructed before 1978. Someone reported 3 here. And then also the lead hazard remediation actions there. Let's talk Section 3 for just a moment. Section 3 used to be a separate report, and then HUD made it so that it is included in the reporting of as one whole reporting effort. And so it's now included in the annual reports and part of the closeout documentation. Here is a requirement that that the information is completed for those projects that reaches a certain amount. So let me just share with you a description about Section 3. Section 3 is a provision of HUD of the Act of 1968. The purpose of Section 3 is to ensure that employment and other economic opportunities generated by certain HUD financial assistance shall, to the greatest extent, and be consistent with existing federal, state, and local laws. A Section 3 worker is any worker who currently fits or when hired within the past 5 years at least meets one of the following categories. The worker's income for the previous or annualized years below the income limit established by HUD. The worker is employed by a Section 3 business of certain concern. Also, a Section 3 targeted worker is a worker for housing and community development financial assistance projects, such as a Section 3 worker who is employed by a Section 3 business. Section 3 projects are housing rehab, housing construction, and other public construction-based assisted under HUD's program. And so the projects that exceeds $200,000 are typically the ones that is required to be reported under. And so with that, those projects, you have to record the total labor hours. You have to indicate if you were able to get a Section 3 worker, or if there was a targeted Section 3 worker. And as you see here on this illustration, the Section 3 worker, there was no Section 3 workers out of the total labor hours. And so if you did not meet that, you are asked to check all that's applicable. Typically, the one that most people use is that they're showing that there was outreach efforts to identify and secure bids from Section 3 business concerns. Other beneficiary information is regarding the total units, how many was affordable units, how many was Section 504, going down of the total affordable units, the number that there was elderly people and the years of affordability that may have been guaranteed. And so you would fill in those that are applicable. And again, we're just going through this. If you need assistance, again, I cannot reiterate enough. Your program administrator will be there to help you. I am there to help you. So you will have the resources to complete these. Also, there may be projects that that will have a benefit of job creation. And so it's important to report, it's a requirement to report about the jobs that's been created or the jobs that's been retained. So for the jobs that's actually created there under total job count, you would enter in the total number of full-time jobs created. And of the total number of full-time jobs created, you enter in the number that was created for low to moderate income persons. In the next column under total weekly hours, of the total weekly part-time hours created, you enter in the number created for LMI persons. And also you enter the total number of weekly part-time job hours, not the number of part-time job, not the number of part-time jobs, but of the total number of weekly part-time job hours. Again, this may be a lot to obtain in this moment. It's not the expectation to learn it right now, but I just wanted to touch on it so that you can see what's involved here. Did want to talk about the contract and subcontract activity. This report is done separately from the annual report. This report is usually due in October, and I'm going to go over with you the due dates of these reports at the end. The purpose of the contract and subcontract activity report is so that you will be able to report on activities that's 10,000 or more. It's important that this report is filled out. It is a requirement, but what information that they are able to obtain from this is so very important. It's a report that we call, and here's another acronym for you, and I love saying it, MeBe-Weebie. MeBe-Weebie. And the MeBe-Weebie stands for Minority Business Enterprise and Women Business Enterprises. And so it helps to keep track of that information because we want to make certain that we are giving opportunity to those enterprises that don't get opportunity. So it's important that this report is filled out. From when you all fill out this report, then I combine all of the information coming from across the state of Virginia and complete a report on telling how many minority businesses were engaged and how many women businesses were engaged. And let me say, it's not that many. And so this will help as it goes up, the information goes up the chain, help to possibly bring more attention to it and also help facilitate how we can make a difference in that regard. So when do you tell your story? So these are some important dates. The annual report is going to be due on July the 8th. The closeout reports of course, is done at the conclusion of a project. And then the HUD 2516, the contract and subcontract activity report, that is due October the 3rd. So that concludes my presentation. I want to thank Jessica Gaines again. And here is our contact information. I want to go back just a quick moment for these reports that's due. For the one that's coming up in July the 8th, mark your calendar, but I will be sending information out to you maybe next month. Probably more than likely next month, so that you will already have it and so that you will be able to be prepared. And so at this point in time, if you have any questions, if there's any questions in the chat, Earlene,
There
I see a
is-
little concern on your face.
There's a nice story in the chat from Ann Mead. She says, Carrie T and I celebrated our homeowner's birthday with delivery of home supplies and hanging shower and window curtains in his new handicap bath and bedroom suite. And she thanks Jessica for working with them on the Damascus rehab. That's a really nice story. And
Is
again,
nice.
these stories are important for us to inspire ourselves. And I'm sure that this gentleman really appreciates that new bathroom and appreciates you celebrating his new bathroom and his birthday with him. So that's great.
Wonderful.
Sherry has a reminder that the narrative allows for 4,000 characters. So you have a lot of space
Exactly.
to elaborate and you know, you might think you know all the story in your head, but it's good to get it out there because you might forget what the reason is behind the data.
Right.
Elizabeth says, if data is provided from 1 year to the next, it's a big red flag for your program administrator. So this is something we will look at. And Deanna says that the Meeby Weeby is also one of her favorite acronyms. It's
Any
good when
other
they're fun to
questions?
say. Any other questions or comments for
Early.
Dr. Mason and Jessica?
Hey, Earlene may have raised her hand. Did you have a question? You don't? Okay, you good? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that July date will be here before you know it. So
Yeah, so that's why you're gonna see your inbox flooded. And again, I want to reiterate the teamwork effort here. Grantees, you are not alone. We are here for you. Please, please, please tell your story. When you're not telling the story, it's impacting the people that you're serving. So what I did want to remind you of is that once a project gets started, that there is a clock that HUD starts clicking with. And so timeliness of completion of projects, I know that there are some things that you can't, that's unforeseeable, but just keep in mind, because all of that is looked at, timeliness, the data, all of that is looked at. So, well, thank you for allowing us to share with you. I love these events, so thank you again, and it's great seeing you off spaces.
thank you so much to you both. Definitely both helping inspire us. Can always count on you guys for that. Thank you. Okay, I think we have another presentation at noon. I'm not sure if Kathy, if you wanted to push that earlier.
I think we can. I think our presenters are here.
Okay, do we want to take a 5-minute break?
Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break if that's okay. Give everybody a little time to stretch. And it's 11:31, so we'll be back at 11:41.
Terry?
Yeah,
Thanks.